Okay, so it's Saturday of Romford Horror Festival, and I'm delighted to be here with some filmmakers from the films that we've just watched. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves and the role in the film, just starting with yourself.
Sure. My name's Ben Hecking. I was the cinematographer on The Creeping.
My name is Rippmann. I'm the producer, writer and director of Spellbound.
Hi, I'm Lisa Callinicos, and I was slightly in Spellbound as an actor.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ben, start with yourself. So you're a cinematographer. Well, first of all, do you call yourself a cinematographer rather than a DOP? Do you see any distinction between those two? Just a random question for you to start with.
Not really. No, I mean, it's sort of interchangeable, but I trained at the National Film and Television School, okay. And our tutor once said that it takes a while to become a director of photography. Cinematographer's kind of, it's sort of like where he was kind of a bit frustrated that a bunch of kind of 20-year-olds were going out calling themselves directors of photography, but I think he was quite old school. Yeah. But yeah, I interchangeable. Yeah.
Cool. So you didn't actually watch the film this time around because you say you've seen it lots and lots of times on big screens as well. And obviously, when you're making the film and you're watching the dailies, I'm guessing, in the post and all that kind of stuff, you kind of get bored of seeing the same things. Do you still spot, like, are you one of these people that can't kind of watch it back because they think they see all the little things in it, or are you quite happy with it? It's just like a process you don't want to keep doing over again.
No, I mean, it's weird. I actually watched the first 25 minutes, and and then I needed a coffee because it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much to everybody for coming out so early as well. By the way, it's wonderful to see people here. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'm really proud of it. Like, you know, is this on? Can you hear me? No, it's not. Oh, there we are. Whoa. Okay, I switched it off. There we are. Okay. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. We shot it sort of very quickly, really. I think it was only sort of 16, 17 days. And we shot it in August, September. So obviously for a horror film that largely takes place at night, we were shooting on the shortest days of the year, which wasn't necessarily great. So it's kind of, what's odd is that a lot of the stuff that was shot at the daylight scenes, like some of the shots looking down the corridor, were actually shot at 2 o'clock in the morning, so pitch black outside, so all lit. And then some of the scenes that take place at night were shot in the middle of the day because of the schedule. So yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of it, and I think it looks great on the big screen. So it's not because I mean, when I've directed stuff, yeah, I mean, you watch it like 70, 80, 90, 100 times, and by the end of it you're like, oh, I never want to see this again. But no, I have a very, The Creeping has a very special place in my heart. So
it should. So we nominated it for Best Cinematography. It is absolutely fantastic. It was one of my favourite films we've got here. It just looks incredible. First of all, what stage do you first get involved? Is it very early? Does it depend on the project? Speaking about this one in particular, what stage do you come in?
Yeah, I mean, it really does depend on the project, and I think for me, it always starts with the script. It's, you know, that's kind of, you know, I have to kind of connect in some way with the story, or kind of think that I could do something with it. I think a lot of this other stuff that I've done is sort of quite, I suppose, naturalistic, and I kind of, I've known Jamie for many years actually. But we'd never worked together before. He's a brilliant filmmaker, and, you know, kind of, you know, real sort of, I mean, he wrote this, he directed it, he edited it, he did the VFX, like, you know, so, and he's also a brilliant cinematographer as well. Like, so he's done loads of short films where he kind of did all of those things, and he and Helen have known each other for years. But I think this one, I can't remember when I first got the script actually. But it was sort of fairly early on, and I think Jamie and I were really, we wanted to make something that felt like it could have been made in the 1980s and then has just been sitting on a shelf somewhere and somebody's done a 4K restoration of it, you know, so it was kind of, and for me, it was then kind of like, great, okay, well, what can we do with the colour? You know, I mean, the moonlight is, you know, each kind of time period, the moonlight goes from being kind of deep sea green to, you know, and but actually, if you watch a lot of the, you know, the Dean Cundy films that, you know, that Spielberg was sort of doing in the 80s, the moonlight is, I mean, they're pretty lit. So it was really, it was kind of really fun, actually, just to sort of play with slightly more non-naturalistic kind of, but still trying to keep it kind of natural, you know, and sort of fit into a world. But yeah, it was sort of, yeah, I think the script was sort of done around about the May, June, and that was when I sort of started working on it, and then we shot it in August. So, yeah.
So do you get the script and make notes? How do you start? Or also, I had another question, part of that. Do you watch any kind of films, or do you study any kind of photography to have ideas in mind for this film, the kind of thing you wanted to recreate, or did you kind of just go by the script and use your own ideas?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely bits that we were like, you know, I mean, the shot when they turned back up at the house and the shaft of light's coming out of the house, I was like, we've got to get a nod to The Exorcist in there somewhere. Yeah. One of my favourite films. Yeah, I mean, we basically came up with a shot list, and we sort of had to have that. We had a really tiny crew. There were only about 7 or 8 of us, I think, in the house. And the house is actually Len's parents, Helen's parents. So they kind of, they bought the house, and then Jamie went down there sort of fairly early on and was like, I'm going to write a horror film for this location, because you wouldn't, I mean, I think Jamie's probably said this, and, you know, but he, you know, you wouldn't write a location, or you wouldn't write a film that had somebody going for a swim in a swimming pool outside with a church next door, unless you had those things. So it was kind of tailor-made for that location, which I think was then really helpful, because I went down and sort of had a recce fairly early on, so I kind of already knew the layout of the house. And then, yeah, we just sat and did a shot list, and we didn't storyboard anything, I don't think, but we definitely, yeah, came up with a shot list, and then Jamie encouraged me to watch some films and that he really liked, and then I kind of went on a bit of a deep dive into low-budget 1980s horror films, which was wonderful, actually, really enjoyable. Yeah. So yeah, but I think we were also very conscious of the sort of the type of film that it was a sort of you know, that kind of ghost stories for Christmas, like it was like, you know, it's kind of family-friendly horror. I mean, even some of the images that Jamie was sending over of what he wanted the ghost to sort of look like was kind of definitely more kind of Spielbergian kind of horror from that sort of 1980s period, rather than something, you know, maybe a bit more extreme that you might expect to see nowadays. Yeah,
I really enjoyed the kind of old style horror element to it. You don't really see that kind of many films like that anymore, I don't think. They're always too, for me, like, you know, on the extreme scale. It was nice to see a ghost story that was, you know, actually had a meaning behind it as well, in terms of the family and the drama that they all go through, in terms of that's a ghost in their family. That's why I really enjoyed it personally. Robin, so your film, Spellbound, when did you first get the idea?
I started writing it about 2014, I think, around then. It just really started with an image for me. I was lying awake one night, scrolling through my phone, and then I started thinking about, well, wouldn't it be creepy if a face suddenly appeared in like the glow of the screen, as you do. Yeah. And I kind of built the whole thing around that, and worked in themes that I enjoy. I like occult aesthetics, and so it kind of just all fell into place.
Was there any kind of films that influenced you in terms of that occult stuff, or is it drawings and art? What is it?
I would definitely say Blair Witch Project was an inspiration. Also things like Suspiria, the kind of modern witch type thing. There's even a little Blair Witch Project stickman on the mantelpiece, but I don't think he ended up seeing it that well in the film. But yeah,
there's a lot of creepy stuff in there. So the nightmare sequence, we're using like the vast landscape. I don't even know how to describe it, but how did you make that? Because that was absolutely incredible, and it just kind of comes. I remember when I was watching it, I was like, wow, that has just come out of nowhere almost. It was like, and I was like, wow, we don't see many kind of special effects shots like that in our films we have here. So can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because that was incredible.
I'm glad you liked it, but I really wouldn't recommend it for short films to write that kind of stuff in, because when I first wrote it, I kind of went in a bit blue-eyed, and there'll be a way to get it done, and partially also because of this dream sequence, I think the film spent a lot of time in like sort of production hell. We first started filming in 2015, I think, something like that. And we had set up to film the final scene, and the location fell through at the last moment a couple of times, and so we came back to finish it in 2019. But the upside was that in the meantime, that allowed me to get some funding for the dream sequence, because I really wanted to try and get it done as close as possible as to what I was imagining it. And I worked with a Swiss-based VFX artist. He usually does commercials and that kind of thing, and it was basically all him. If he hadn't given me like a culture discount, it wouldn't have been possible either. And he said it was like 8 times the work for about the same fee. So I think he had some regrets as well.
I mean, it's really worth the time that you took, obviously, to get that money together, and the time that it took to produce that film, because that sequence was absolutely amazing. Lisa, how did you first get involved? What's your background? How did you arrive at this project?
I don't think I auditioned for this one, did I? No, I auditioned for an earlier film when Robin was perhaps still a student, and so I can't even remember. Is this only the second film we've done?
Yes.
Why aren't there more? So basically previously worked with Robin, and not quite the same character, but slightly evil, of course. Seems to be my casting, and he just asked me, and then it seemed like it wasn't going to be finished for a while there, but we actually did it, so that's quite amazing to get the team back together, and no CGI as well.
What was your greatest challenge on this film?
Some of the sequences with the hands and the in the CGI sequence, I guess, that was quite funny but difficult. I was in like a green suit with a green screen, and then getting it just right. And Nick was very tall, so you'd have to get like above ladders, and not as slick as it looked in the end. But then also on the day when I had the actual dialogue, I wasn't very well, so I was trying to not look more sick than the character who was actually meant to be under the weather. So rubbing the feathers, that was really hard.
Aside from the CGI part, Robin, what was your biggest challenge making this film? And I guess the funding as well, maybe. Was there any other kind of technical challenges?
Yes, I think with this amount of VFX and CGI, it's quite tricky to film it in a way that you don't cause too many problems for the people then making the VFX. There's a lot of, you need enough tracking markers, but not too many, because they'll have to rotoscope all of them out in the end. and that kind of thing. And I remember it was a bit of a struggle with the lighting, because the cinematographer obviously wanted it to light it as close as possible to what the look of the final scene was. But then we had to kind of go, you need to forget everything you know. We just need to light it really flatly and evenly to get the compositing done as easily as possible. And I think the other challenge was producing it as well. It's always a bit tricky to not be burnt out from producing by the time you get on set, and then you sort of remember, oh, I've still got to direct as well.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that was a bit rough. But,
And for you, Ben, what was the greatest challenge for you? Were there any particularly difficult shots or conditions that, lighting or whatever? It's very, obviously, very dependent, aren't you, on weather and all that kind of stuff, and the location, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, we were incredibly lucky, really, in terms of, it was gorgeous. Certainly for the daylight stuff, it was, we lucked out, but because the whole thing was shot out of sequence because of actor availability and stuff, sometimes you'd shoot interiors that you'd be lighting, but you wouldn't film the exteriors for another, 5 or 6 days. So you kind of have that sudden thing where you go, okay, well, I'm going to smash a light through here, and I'm going to do this, and keep your fingers crossed that in 5 days' time the sun is going to be out and it's kind of going to be doing, because if you've got a shot where somebody literally walks out of the door and they're outside and it's grey or raining, and because our schedule was so tight, there wasn't a huge amount of wriggle room in terms of being able to sort of have like rain cover days. So we were very fortunate that the British weather, worked in our favour. Aside from that, I think probably just the schedule and trying to do, a horror film where, probably 60-70% of it takes place at night time in August was pretty stressful. So there was kind of lots of, getting up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and working through the night and then going to bed and sleeping during the day, and it was sort of kind of chucked you out of sync. And then the other things, the lens. So we always wanted there to be this these kind of creeping zooms, that it was very kind of part of our style. But we then discovered, and it was kind of so obviously you have like a zoom control I had a zoom control on the handle of the tripod. And we set it up one day, and we suddenly realised that actually the lens, because of the motors, was zooming by itself. So it was sort of like halfway through the shot, I was trying to work out what was going on. I was like, hang on, this is getting tighter. And so actually a lot of even though it was a deliberate thing that we wanted, there's no way I would have been able to get it as smooth whilst also operating. So once we'd figured out that the lens was kind of essentially moving by itself, we just kind of then went, oh, okay, all right, let's lean into this. So initially that was a bit of a worry, but then it was kind of like, oh, okay, right, now let's design the shots so that we can make this work for us. So that was quite fun.
I love those kind of happy accidents.
Yeah.
Cinema is full of those. You just don't really know about it.
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about what we're all doing next. So let's start with you, Ben. What's your next project?
So I'm in post on a feature that I wrote, directed and shot last January. So that should be finished around about May time, I hope. And it's not, no, it's not a horror film. It's a kind of character study, sort of very inspired by the new wave and stuff like that. So I'm doing that, and I'm just busy writing stuff at the moment. That's the kind of the plan at the minute, to have, because it's always about the next, having the next thing. And I know that Jamie's written a couple of scripts, so I think he's looking to kind of see what might happen. And The Creeping's getting released in America. On the 3rd of March. It's doing VOD, and I think maybe a couple of screens in the States, and so hopefully it'll end up on a platform over here as well. But yeah, the financier, who's absolutely wonderful, the exec producer on The Creeping, I've worked with her a couple of times, and she's involved in this next project. So, I mean, we kind of couldn't do it without her, really. I mean, it's she's amazing. So, big props to her for investing in independent film, because it's, anyway.
Yeah. What are you working on next?
I'm working on 2 short film scripts. One is a folk horror type thing, and the other more of a cosmic horror. 2 genres I still want to kind of explore. Both of them still need a couple of more passes, so it's like whichever I'll get to first, I guess.
Do you need a cinematographer?
Yeah, we'll talk later.
There you go. Instant networking.
Do you need any witches made of hay? I have a couple of self-tapes to do today, so by tomorrow morning. So yeah, I'm auditioning as per usual, and I actually had the opportunity because Robin couldn't make it to go with this film to the Film Quest, and I watched a million horror sci-fi fantasies in a row, and I'm writing some stuff now, so we'll see what might happen there. But yeah, can't think of anything obvious that's coming up.
You're very much
Except
available.
for Robin's films.
Yeah. Are you going to work together again soon? Any plans at the minute? Or?
No plans currently, but the day is young.
So, last question, just a fun one. You're stuck on a desert island. You can take 3 horror films. I allow sci-fi as well, because we have sci-fi films here. So you can take 3 horror or sci-fi films with you for the rest of time. What are you going to take with you? Do you want to go first?
I'll
Ben?
go
You've
first.
got some
I'll go
answers, so
first
you go first.
because I can do it. So, The Exorcist, which I actually, my mum banned me from ever watching it, and then when I was about 17, she forgot that she'd banned me from watching it, and so we sat down together at 11 o'clock in the morning to watch it, and up until that point, she'd always said it was going to be the scariest film I'd ever seen in my life. So horror, before that, kind of pre-Exorcist, scared the living hell out of me. Then I watched The Exorcist, and it was not the scariest film I ever saw in my life, but I love it, and I think it's an incredible film. So from that point onwards, horror films have never scared me, which is, so thanks, Mum, for that. So I take The Exorcist, The Wicker Man, and I saw The Keep the other night, which confused me so much, and it was so trippy that I think I'd like to take that with me just so that I could watch it and try and make some sense of it. Yeah.
Great answers. Robin?
Yeah, it's really tricky, but I think I'd probably be taking Cat People, the black and white version. It's one of my favorites. Probably John Carpenter's The Thing. And I think maybe Hereditary, because there aren't many films that make me lose sleep for like 2 nights straight, and that was one of them.
Yeah, I can see that.
I feel it's such a newbie to the genre still. I'm gonna have to watch all of these, and I don't know, does the Babadook count?
Absolutely.
With the ending?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a great film.
Yeah, pretty blank otherwise. Just too many.
Babadook is good enough for all 3 picks, to be fair. That is a desert island I'd love to be on, because I love all those films actually, in all different ways. Thank you so much for joining us at Romford Horror Festival, bringing your films here, submitting them, and coming, obviously. Can I have a round of applause, please, for our filmmakers?